Hello, YouTube. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be hearing this message. I just want to take a slight moment and thanking you all for listening along, commenting along. With that being said, today we're going to continue the fourth chapter of The 12th Planet by Zecharia Sitchin, picking up on page 109. No, I'm sorry about that. On page 99. Down at the bottom where we last left off. The third great god of Sumer was another son of Anu. He bore two names, Ea and Enki. Like his brother Enlil, he too was a god of heaven and earth, a deity originally of the heavens and who had come down to earth. His arrival on earth is associated in Sumerian texts with a time when the waters of the Persian Gulf reached inland much further than nowadays, turning the southern part of the country into marshlands. Ea, the name literally meant house water, who was a master engineer, planned and supervised the constructions of canals and the diking of the rivers and the draining of the marshlands. He loved to go sailing on these waterways and especially in the marshlands. The waters, as his name denoted, were indeed his home. He built his great house in the city he had founded at the edge of the marshlands, a city appropriately named Haaki, the place of the water fishes. It was also known as Eridu, home of going afar. Ea was lord of the salt waters, the seas and oceans. Sumerian texts speak repeatedly of a very early time when the three great gods divided the realms among them. The seas they had given to Enki, the prince of earth, thereby giving Enki the rulership of the Apsu, the deep. As lord of the seas, Ea built ships that sailed to far lands and especially to places from which precious metals and semi-precious stones were brought to Sumer. The earliest Sumerian cylinder seals depicted Ea as a deity surrounded by flowing streams that were sometimes shown to contain fish. The seals associated Ea as shown here with the moon indicated by its crescent, in association stemming perhaps from the fact that the moon caused the tides of the seas. It was no doubt in reference to such an astral image that Ea was given the epithet Nin-Igiku, Lord Bright Eye, on figure 36. And that's below Ea, Enki, Nin-Igiku, sitting here on his throne with the three gods praising him. According to the Sumerian texts, including a truly amazing autobiography by Ea himself, he was born in the heavens and came down to earth before there was any settlement or civilization upon earth. When I approached the land, there was much flooding, he stated. He then proceeded to describe the series of actions taken by him to make the land habitable. He filled the Tigris River with fresh, life-giving waters. He appointed a god to supervise the construction of canals to make the Tigris and Euphrates navigable, and he unclogged the marshlands, filling them up with fish and making them a haven for birds of all kinds, and causing to grow there reeds that were a useful building material. Turning from the seas and rivers to the dry land, Ea claimed that it was he who directed the plow and yoke, opened the holy furrows, built the stalls, erected sheepfolds. Continuing the self-adultery text named by scholars Enki and the world order credited the god with bringing to earth the arts of brickmaking, construction of dwellings and cities, metallurgy, and so on, presenting the deity as mankind's greatest benefactor, the god who brought about civilization. Many texts also depicted him as mankind's chief protagonist at the councils of the gods. Sumerian and Akkadian deluge texts on which the biblical account must have drawn depict Ea as the god who, in defiance of the decision of the assembly of the gods, enabled a trusted follower, the Mesopotamian Noah, to escape the disaster. Indeed, the Sumerian and Akkadian texts, which, like the Old Testament, adhered to the belief that a god or the gods created man through a conscious and deliberate act, attribute to Ea a key role as the chief scientist of the gods. He outlined the method and the purposes by which man was to be created. With such affinity to the creation or emergence of man, no wonder that it was Ea who guided Adapa, the model man, created by Ea's wisdom, to the abode of Anu in the heavens, in defiance of the gods' determination to withhold eternal life from mankind. Was Ea on the side of man simply because he had a hand in his creation, or did he have other more subjective motives? As we scan the record, we find that invariably Ea's defiance in mortal and divine matters alike was aimed mostly at frustrating decisions or plans emanating from Enlil. The record is replete with indications of Ea's burning jealousy of his brother Enlil. Indeed, Ea's other and perhaps first name was Enki, Lord of Earth, and the text dealing with the division of the world among the three gods hint that it may have been simply by a drawing of lots of Ea lost mastery of earth to his brother Enlil. The gods had clasped their hands together, had cast lots, and had divided. Anu then went up to heaven. To Enlil the earth was made subject, the seas enclosed as with a loop. They had given to Enki, the prince of earth. As bitter as Ea or Enki may have been about the results of this drawing, he appears to have nurtured a much deeper resentment. The reason is given by Enki himself in his autobiography. It was he, not Enlil, who was firstborn, Enki claimed. It was then he, not Enlil, who was entitled to be heir apparent to Anu. My father, the king of the universe, brought me forth in the universe. I am the fecund seed, engendered by the great wild bull. I am the firstborn son of Anu. I am the great brother of the gods. I am he who has been born as the first son of the divine Anu. Since the codes of laws by which men lived in the ancient Near East were given by the gods, it stands to reason that the social and family laws applying to men were copies of those applying to the gods. Court and family records found at such sites as Mari and Nuzi have confirmed that the biblical customs and laws by which the Hebrew patriarchs lived were the laws by which kings and noblemen were bound throughout the ancient Near East. The succession problems the patriarchs faced are therefore instructive. Abraham, deprived of a child by the apparent barrenness of his wife Sarah, had a firstborn son by her maidservant. Yet this son, Ishmael, was excluded from the patriarchal succession as soon as Sarah herself bore Abraham a son, Isaac. Isaac's wife Rebekah was pregnant with twins. The one who was technically firstborn was Esau, a reddish, hairy, and rugged fellow. Holding onto Esau's heel was the more refined Jacob, whom Rebekah cherished. When the when the aging and half-blind Isaac was about to proclaim his testament, Rebekah used a ruse to have the blessing of succession bestowed on Jacob rather than on Esau. Finally, Jacob's succession problems resulted from the fact that though he served Laban for 20 years to get the hand of Rachel in marriage, Laban forced him to marry her older sister Leah first. It was Leah who bore Jacob his first son, Reuben, and he had more sons and a daughter by her and by two concubines. Yet when Rachel finally bore him her firstborn son, Joseph, Jacob preferred him over his brothers. Against the background of such customs and succession laws, one can understand the conflicting claims between Enlil and Ea or Enki. Enlil, by all records of the son of Anu and his official consort Antu, was a legal firstborn. But the anguished cry of Enki, I am the fecund seed, I am the firstborn son of Anu, must have been a statement of fact. Was he then born to Anu, but by another goddess who was only a concubine? The tale of Isaac and Ishmael, or the story of the twins Esau and Jacob, may have had a prior parallel in the heavenly abode. Though Enki appears to have accepted Enlil's succession prerogatives, some scholars see enough evidence to show a continuing power struggle between the two gods. Samuel N. Kramer has titled one of the ancient texts Enki and His Inferiority Complex. As we shall see later on, several biblical tales of Eve and the serpent in the Garden of Eden, or the tale of the deluge, involve in their original Sumerian versions instances of defiance by Enki of his brother's edicts. Excuse me. At some point, it seems Enki decided that there was no sense to his struggle for the divine throne, and he put his efforts into making a son of his rather than a son of Enlil, the third generation successor. This he sought to achieve, at least at first, with the aid of his sister, Ninurshag, Lady of the Mountainhead. She too was a daughter of Anu, but evidently not by Antu, and therein lay another rule of succession. Scholars have wondered in years past why both Abraham and Isaac advertised the fact that their respective wives were also their sisters, a puzzling claim in view of the biblical prohibition against sexual relations with the sister. But as the legal documents were unearthed at Mari and Nuzi, it became clear that a man could marry a half sister. Moreover, when all the children of all the wives were considered, the son born of such a wife, being 50% more of the pure seed than a son by an unrelated wife, was the legal heir, whether or not he was the firstborn son. This incidentally led in Mari and Nuzi to the practice of adopting the preferred wife as a sister in order to make her son the unchallenged legal heir. It was such a half sister, Ninurshag, that Enki sought to have a son. She too was of the heavens. Having come to earth in earliest times, several texts state that when the gods were dividing earth's domains amongst themselves, she was given land of Dilmun, a pure place, a pure land, a place most bright. A text named by the scholars Enki and Ninurshag, a paradise myth, deals with Enki's trip to Dilmun for conjugal purposes. Ninurshag, the text repeatedly stresses, was alone, unattached, a spinster, though in later times she was depicted as an old matron. She must have been very attractive when she was younger, for the text informs us unabashedly that when Enki neared her, the sight of her caused his penis to water the dikes. Instructing that they be left alone, Enki poured the semen in the womb of Ninurshag. She took the semen into the womb, the semen of Enki, and then, after the 9 months of womanhood, she gave birth at the bank of the waters, but the child was a daughter. Having failed to obtain a male heir, Enki then proceeded to make love to his own daughter. He embraced her. He kissed her. Enki poured the semen into the womb, but she too bore him a daughter. Enki then went after his granddaughter and made her pregnant too. But once again the offspring was a female. Determined to stop these efforts, Ninurshag put a curse on him, whereby Enki, having eaten some plants, became mortally sick. The other gods, however, forced Ninurshag to remove the curse. While these events had great bearing on divine affairs, Other tales pertaining to Enki and Anurshag have great bearing on human affairs, for according to the Sumerian text, man was created by Nanurshag following processes and formulas devised by Enki. She was the chief nurse, the one in charge of medical facilities. It was in that role that the goddess was called Ninti, Lady Life, in Figure 47. Some scholars read in Adapa, the model man of Enki, the biblical Adama or Adam. The double meaning of the Sumerian T also raises biblical parallels, for T could mean both life and rib, so that Ninti's name meant both Lady of Life and Lady of the Rib. The biblical Eve, whose name meant life, was created out of Adam's rib, so Eve too was in a way a lady of life and a lady of the rib. As giver of life to gods and man alike, Ninurshag was spoken of as the mother goddess. She was nicknamed Mamu, the forerunner of our mom or mama, and her symbol was the cutter, the tool used in antiquity by midwives to cut the umbilical cord after birth in Figure 48. I'm gonna take a quick drink, guys. Excuse me. Thank you. Enlil, Enki's brother and rival, did have the good fortune to achieve such a rightful heir by his sister Ninurshag, the youngest of the gods upon earth who were born in the heavens. His name was Ninurta, Lord who completes the foundation. He was the heroic son of Enlil, who went forth with net and Reza light to battle for his father, the avenging sun, who launched bolts of light in Figure 49. His spouse, Ba'u, I'm sorry guys, was also a nurse or a doctor. Her epithet was lady who the dead brings back to life. The ancient portraits of Ninurta showed him holding a unique weapon, no doubt the very one that could shoot bolts of light. The ancient texts hailed him as a mighty hunter, a fighting god renowned for his martial abilities. But his greatest heroic fight was not in behalf of his father, but for his own sake. It was a wide-ranging battle with an evil god named Zu, or Wise, and it involved no less a prize than the leadership of the gods on earth. For Zu had illegally captured the insignia and objects Enlil had held as chief of the gods. The texts describing these events are broken at the beginning, and the story becomes legible only from the point when Zu arrives at the Ikur, the temple of Enlil. He is apparently known and of some rank, for Enlil welcomes him, entrusting to him the guarding of the entrance to his shrine. But the evil Zu was to repay trust with betrayal, for it was the removal of the Enlilship, the seizing of the divine powers that he conceived in his heart. To do so, Zu had to take possession of certain objects, including the magical tablet of destinies. The wily Zu seized his opportunity when Enlil undressed and went into the pool for his daily swim, leaving his paraphernalia unattended. At the entrance of the sanctuary, which he had been viewing, Zu awaits the start of day. As Enlil was washing with pure water, his crown having been removed and deposited on the throne, Zu seized the tablet of destinies in his hands, took away the Enlilship. As Zu fled in his Mu, translated name, but indicating a flying machine, to a faraway hideaway, the consequences of his bold act were beginning to take effect. Suspended were the divine formulas. Stillness spread all over. Silence prevailed. The sanctuary's brilliance was taken off. Father Enlil was speechless. The gods of the land gathered by one gathered one by one at the news. The matter was so grave that even Anu was informed at his heavenly abode. That was pretty crazy, guys. So, top figure number 47. That's the Ninti, which was Ninurshag when she uh, took on the identity of a quote unquote, um, whatever the Sitchin put it, uh, chief nurse, he puts it. And 48, talking about that's the symbol for Mamu, the mother goddess. And the symbol was quote unquote the cutter, which is a tool used in antiquity by midwives to cut the umbilical cord after birth. Figure 49, down at the bottom, is a depiction of the newborn king, Ninurta. He reviewed the situation and concluded that Zu must be apprehended so that the formulas could be restored. Turning to the gods, his children, Anu asked, "Which of the gods will smite Zu? His name shall be greatest of all." Several gods known for their valor were called in, but they all pointed out that having taken the Tablet of Destinies, Zu now possessed the same powers as Enlil, so that he who opposes him becomes like clay. At this point, Ea had a great idea. Why not call upon Ninurta to take up the hopeless fight? The assembled gods could not have missed Ea's ingenious mischief. Clearly, the chances of the succession falling into his own offspring stood to increase if Zu were defeated. Likewise, he could benefit if Ninurta were killed in the process. To the amazement of the gods, Ninurshag, in this text called Ninma, Great Lady, agreed. Turning to her son Ninurta, she explained to him that Zu robbed not only Enlil, but Ninurta too of the Enlilship. "With shrieks of pain I give birth," she shouted, "and it was she who made certain for my brother and for Anu the continued kingship of heaven, so that her pains not be in vain, she instructed Ninurta to go out and fight to win. Launch thy offensive, capture the fugitive Zu. Let thy terrifying offensive rage against him. Slit his throat, vanquish Zu. Let thy 7 ill winds go against him. Cause the entire whirlwind to attack him. Let thy radiance go against him. Let thy winds carry his wings to a secret place. Let sovereignty return to occur. Let the divine formulas return to the Father who begot thee." The various versions of the epic then provide thrilling descriptions of the battle that ensued. Ninurta shot arrows at Zu, but the arrows could not approach Zu's body, while he bore the tablet of destinies of the gods in his hand. The launched weapons were stopped in the midst of their flight. As the inconclusive battle wore on, Ea advised Ninurta to add a tilum to his weapons and shoot into the pinions or small cogwheels of Zu's wings. Following this advice and shouting wing to wing, Ninurta shot the tilum at Zu's pinions. Thus hit, the pinions began to scatter, and the wings of Zu fell in a swirl. Zu was vanquished, and the tablets of destiny returned to Enlil. And we're gonna stop there for today, guys, because like I was saying in yesterday's video, I want to try and break this up into equal parts. So I hope that's achieved. But thank you, everyone, for listening along, commenting along, and just sharing. Thank you, guys.